Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm the Meister and welcome back to the greater Timbukton region. What you're looking at right now is Burton in its current form, and we're going to be working in the eastern section of town. We're going to be developing the retail district of town. So a lot more modern and new development. There's going to be a lot of residential, suburbs, and a lot of retail as well. So there's not going to be like a big mall or anything like that, but we're just going to have like our normal Walmart, and we'll have like a Home Depot and you know, just your average big box stores. With this being Burton, you know, with it having a smaller population and everything, there's not going to be any like huge retail development. You know, there's just going to be like regular grocery stores and stuff to serve the outer suburbs of town. So also in this episode, we're going to be getting into some newer residential development, so some suburbs that were maybe built in like the late 90s, early 2000s kind of style. So it's going to be a pretty interesting episode. The episode's a good half hour, so lots to see here. So before we begin any retail or any development whatsoever, we're going to have to modify and upgrade our infrastructure a little bit because there's going to be a lot more traffic in this area. I took the opportunity to upgrade this highway right here. So this retail section is going to be a big stopover for much of the eastern population in the Timbukton region, and basically it'll save the people from crossing the bridge into Timbukton into its retail section. So Burton's retail section is going to be a little smaller, but it will have exactly what everybody needs. So I'm going to catch up with you guys in a couple of minutes here while I finish this infrastructure, and then we'll move on to some retail stores. Alright guys, so we got a Home Depot, and now I'm going to move across the street onto a Walmart. We're going to build a Walmart in this space right here, and I'm also going to leave some room for parking. As you see right here, I always leave like a blank space to plop down some parking. For this entire section, I won't be using the parking road tool very much. I'm not sure what the official name is, but we'll just call it by the parking road tool, and I think you guys know what I mean. So the reason I'm not really using it that much in this situation is I'm a little tight on space, and I don't think that tool is very effective when you're looking to save space. So it's a great tool and all. I love it. I've used it quite a bit since it's been out, and it's a very effective way to creating realistic parking lots and decorated parking lots. But in this situation, I'm not really going for anything fancy, and I'd rather just plop down my parking lots by hand. And another thing I find with the parking road tool is they're good for making decorated parking lots. But one thing I've noticed, I don't know if there's a reason behind it or anything like that, but as an example, I was down in Florida a couple of years ago in around the Sarasota area, and everywhere you go, like any retail store or anywhere, parking lots are always like full of curbs, full of trees in those curbs. Like every parking lot seems to be really nicely decorated, and all, there's plants everywhere, and everything just seems so nice. So I don't know if there's a reason for that, or if it's just like a Florida or a Sarasota thing. I don't really know. But comparing that to parking lots back home, here in my area, and I mean most of like wherever I've been in Canada, parking lots are always just like a giant field, like a giant parking lot, no curbs or anything, and it's just like a wide open space with parking lines. So I don't know if there's a reason for that, but if there is, I would assume it's maybe for snow removal. Of course, it's a lot easier removing snow when there's nothing in your way, because during winter here, the snow hills within parking lots can get pretty high. I can only assume that curbs and stuff in the way would make the snow removal people's job a lot harder. So for this, with this being a sort of, northern climate area, we're going to sort of emulate the empty parking lot sort of situation. So with these types of projects, when you're dealing with super huge assets, things go along quite nicely. As you plop down like giant Home Depots, like in this case, it takes up a lot of room, and it just seems like you're progressing very rapidly. So what I'm doing right now is plopping down some smaller commercial areas like this McDonald's and this gas station here, just to fill in the little cracks. But I mean, as I was saying, like everything just pieces together very nicely. It's not like, in this case, I'm not taking the time to detail everything in like the most minuscule kind of way. I'm just adding a couple of details here and there, because I mean, like this, it's not a super high focus area, and I mean, I don't really see the need to decorate retail spaces more than that. Most of them, they come with enough detail within themselves anyway. So what I'm going to move on to now is a strip mall, and again, I'm just leaving some room for some parking, because in building any sort of retail area in a city, you're always going to find like more parking than there is actual like store space. If you look at like any image or like a satellite image of most North American city anyway, I mean, there's going to be far more parking than there is like actual building space. I guess it's just more prevalent in North America, but I mean, I know like in England and stuff, you guys have like Tesco's and whatever, and I guess there's enough parking there as well. With this being a North American setting, I'm just going ham with the park. So what I'm also doing is adding some curbs and stuff around my parking spots now. Don't confuse that with, as I was saying a minute ago, that there are no curbs in Canada. There are plenty, but I just find that there's not as much within parking lots. So whereas in Florida, like I was noticing like these little curbs between parking spaces and stuff, you don't find that around here, but you always find curbs around a parking area. So I decided to take a little bit of a break from that little strip mall. I wasn't too sure what exactly I wanted to plop down. I was exploring my Rico menu, and I noticed that there were some car dealerships that I had downloaded like way back a couple of years ago. And I decided, well, I haven't actually like plopped down any of these ever. So I thought that it was a good opportunity to plop this down right here in between this little interchange, because in most cases, and even in real life, you don't really find any buildings and stuff usually between interchanges. But I mean, in this case here, it was a perfect opportunity to place down this Honda dealership here. And I mean, it's a high visibility place because everybody going down the highway is going to notice it, right? So if somebody was to build a dealership anywhere in this town, this would be a perfect location, and it fit just perfectly in this this loop right here. So anyways, after a couple minutes, I figured out exactly what I wanted to plop down for this little strip mall, and here it is. Now they're like 3 separate buildings. They're not at all from the same pack, but I find that they fit nicely together. They all have like the sort of same color theme, so I plopped those down there. And on the other side of the road right here, we're going to plop down a little strip mall as well, but it won't be as modern looking as the Michaels, for example, that we just plopped down. This strip mall may have been built in like the 70s or something, so it's got a little bit more age to it. And fast food as well. You're seeing me here plop down a fast food restaurant. I'm not too sure what it is just by looking at it. But in this area, I do end up plopping down a lot of fast food restaurants. And gas stations as well. You always find like 3 or 4 gas stations in and around like your retail spaces in North American cities, so I'm just going along with that theme. So as I was saying, like this strip mall here is a little bit lower income, I suppose. You know, we got little pawn shops, and we're gonna have a liquor store. So as you can see, it's not really as modern as what you would find elsewhere in this area. So as you can see, we're almost about at the halfway mark of the episode, and you can see that things are falling into place quite nicely. We're developing very quickly, and you know, everything is just going along very nice here. So a little later, after we're done this retail space, we're gonna get into some residential, and like I said, most of the residential that's around this area is going to be quite modern, maybe built in like the mid-90s to mid-2000s era. And the street layout, you'll notice that will change quite a bit. So I'll get more into detail in a couple minutes, but I just wanted to give you guys a little preview to what's coming up here. So also guys, if you have any suggestions or whatever that you want to see me build in this city, let me know. I know I've received a couple of suggestions before to have an airport built, so that's in the works. I have built off camera, well, I recorded it, but I didn't include it in any episode yet. I have built a large hospital in Burton, really close to downtown, and I'm probably going to feature that in a future video. It's not a very big project. It only took me about like maybe an hour to build it, and that translates into like 5 minutes worth of sped up footage. So I don't know, I might include that a little later in the series somewhere. I actually thought of including it in this episode, but it would have made this episode way too long. Originally in this episode, I was only going to include the retail section and not the residential section that's going to be around it, and make it like a sort of 2-part series. But I figured, you know, I'd just include everything and build up this entire area. Alright, so as you see, I've started to plop down a few houses here and there just to test fit how everything would look, and I've done a little bit of work off camera as well. I've plopped down a couple buildings here and there on this little side road, and sometimes I'll do that, just to cut out a little bit of useless footage. But in this case, I was just sort of trying to test fit everything to make sure that everything looks just right. So we're going to move on to this little side street, and this won't really include any retail per se. It's more little like shops, mom and pop stores and stuff like that. And right after that, we're going to start to move into the actual residential section, as I'm doing right now actually. Sometimes I forget exactly like how everything rolls out in my videos, and sometimes I just have to go along with everything. So you'll see here that a lot of residential buildings have the vanilla trees on them, and they don't look very nice, but don't worry, I use the prop changer tool to change those out a little bit later off camera, because it can be a little bit of a long process. So this area will be complete with mostly new residential with a few older houses here and there, and there will be a large elementary school, and no high school though. The high school will be more in central Burton. So as I'm going along here, I'm actually using a combination of a few different house packs that are available in the workshop. I believe they are all from the eclectic theme, although I think there's like multiple packs for them. There's some smaller houses and some larger houses, and I'm sort of mingling everything together to make this sort of generic neighborhood. Alright, so right now I'm going to start to build an elementary school that'll serve this entire suburban area. And by the way, the whole area needs a name. I haven't picked out a name for it yet, and I want to leave that up to you guys, because I've been choosing names for like everywheres around town, and I'd just like to give you guys the opportunity to choose the name of this area. So this entire suburban area, which was highlighted at the beginning of the video, I want you guys to choose a name for that, and I'll pick whichever comment I prefer the most, and we'll go from there. So don't worry, if your name wasn't picked, you'll have more opportunities later on to choose names or choose different things in different videos. I'm eventually going to find like some polls that I may be able to ask you guys. Back in the Aubrey City days, when the polling option was recently released on YouTube, those were doing pretty good. You know, I was getting like 300 to 500 people that were voting per video, which is actually a pretty good number for me. So I'd like to introduce that back into my videos. It has been quite a while since I haven't done anything like that. And, you know, it just keeps the community a little bit more involved. So whenever I have the opportunity to post a poll or anything like that, I will be giving you folks the option. So as we approach the end of this episode, I'm just going to take a minute to explain what's going on in the next episode. And that's going to be completely featured on industries, quite appropriate with City Skylines Industries just being released. So I'm going to try to see how I can incorporate those newest systems into Burton and see if I can make everything fit just right. So the industrial section we're going to be working on is pretty close to downtown, and much of it is actually going to be abandoned or in decay. So some old factories and some old brick buildings will be featured in that area. So I don't know how the new DLC will be able to incorporate that. I don't really know, and I haven't seen how any of the buildings look like. I've just seen a couple previews here and there on like how forestry works and all that stuff. So I'm gonna see how I can fit everything in. If I can't, then I'll just be using some assets and stuff from the workshop, but I'll try to plop down some vanilla here and there if it looks nice. But yeah, I'll get more into detail in the next episode, maybe some story behind the industrial area. So with all that being said, guys, I really hope you liked this episode. If you did, as usual, please leave it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, as there is much more content on the way. And be sure to hit that bell icon as well to be notified when I release another episode. So yeah, guys, that is it for this episode, and I can't wait to get started on the next episode. Could be quite interesting, we'll see. So stay tuned, guys, till the end of the episode, because I've added a lot of props and trees and stuff off camera, and you'll be able to see how the entire area looks like when it's complete, with the exception of the beach area. We'll get into that a little later in the series, possibly the episode after the Industries episode, so we'll see. Anyways, take care, guys. See you in the next episode.